Hey, Mama Soup, it's Papa Soup. How are you?
Hey, Papa Soup.
How are you on
It
this beautiful, sunny, gorgeous winter day with no snow?
is cold out,
It is.
but it's
What are
warm
we
inside.
talking about today, baby?
We're going to talk about, all right, recently somebody reached out to me, somebody that I know, and she has kids in high school, and one of her kids is suffering from severe anxiety to the point where,
Oh,
yeah, the kid can't go
yeah.
to school.
Oh, well, wouldn't you know? I think we can relate.
We can relate because we do have a similar situation, and the difference is that we'll talk about we'll
Well,
talk
we
about it.
we'll talk about it because we're dealing with that right now, actually. And
That's right.
we've dealt so anxiety with kids and teenagers. I think teenagers right now, but it doesn't mean it doesn't affect younger kids.
Oh,
I
it
had
can start early.
I have friends that they had a son who had anxiety at 7 years old and was worried about world problems and the like and horrible news and stuff. And he was reacting to news. And at such a young age, he was depressed and it was sad, you know? People don't give kids enough credit in that, you know what? Yeah, oh, he's just a kid. He doesn't understand. Yeah, they understand. And they understand and they process. And without proper guidance and information from parents, they're left to make their own decisions about stuff.
And
And
let's be
they
honest,
might they might not
half
be
of
well
the
equipped to do so. Yeah.
yeah, half of the parents aren't well equipped either because parent
Oh,
adults are dealing with such high levels of anxiety, especially now because of the
absolutely.
virus. So
Absolutely.
I feel really bad because yes, we are dealing with this ourselves to a certain degree
Yes.
as parents. I mean, you've never ever shied away from talking about your own anxiety that you've struggled with over the years.
Well, I think that certainly has given me a good toolkit to help me try and help my kids deal with it. Unfortunately, I believe I'm genetically predisposed to anxiety. It ran rampant in my family. And yeah,
Is
it
it
affected me.
genetics
Genetics is tied to anxiety. From the
or is
little
it
I've
a
read,
okay?
the little bit I've read about it, yes, it can be hereditary. So you're predisposed to it. And I mean, quite frankly, my anxiety was, I didn't understand it. It hit me like a ton of bricks in my early 20s.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what was going on. I thought I was losing my mind. You know, I was having panic attacks. All of a sudden I started avoiding doing things because I thought it was going to make me anxious.
That'd be
And in turn, that anxiety would force another panic attack. It was a horrible circle to be in. Anyway, with a lot of understanding, my parents didn't know anything about it at the time. So, you know, they tried to do the best they could, take me to the doctors, see what's wrong. The worst day of my life with that was when the doctor told me there was nothing wrong with me.
Mm,
I was certain there was something physically wrong with me, right? And did all the blood tests, all the other tests, and that day the doctor said, "Well, I'm going to refer you to a psychiatrist." And my heart dropped. I was like, "Oh my God, am I crazy? Am I losing my mind?" I didn't know anything from psychiatrists. I never even said the word psychiatrist until I was 21 years old.
aw.
And then I had to go see one, right? And that started my journey with therapy and drug therapy. And I don't know. I don't think I was diagnosed properly, to be honest with you. I mean,
I don't either.
I know. Yeah, we met, and you helped me a lot in helping me to deal with my anxiety, and also it was a different voice to have in my, you know, in my head, telling me that I was okay and things were fine. Um, but you know, kids today have a lot more to be anxious about than I
Uh-huh.
did,
Yeah.
right? I had my irrational fears, but man, I don't know that I'd want to be a teenager in today's world trying to navigate.
Yeah. When we talk about anxiety in teenagers, we cannot discount the fact that it's not the same as it was when we were growing up
No,
at
not at
all.
all. Not at all.
And
The symptoms are the same, the reactions are the same, the physiological effects of it are the same, but the cause of it, And the world that's going around, no, not even close.
No.
Like there's kids today have to be so resilient because there's so much negativity out there right now in the world. And I don't know how kids, I don't envy kids, especially now, 2 years of COVID,
Fuck.
and kids are left to deal with it like, oh, just shake it off or go here. Like it's like
No.
I appreciate that the schools offer support and counseling and stuff, but kids that are having anxiety aren't going to come running to a counselor for help.
No.
They're going to avoid school. We have a kid that's avoiding school right now because that's
Exactly.
the cause of his big cause of his anxiety is he's afraid he's going to be singled out. He's afraid. I mean, it's irrational fears to a rational person, but they're very real to the person suffering, right? That's what you have to understand about anxiety. People who don't understand anxiety never will unless they experience it. It's like having this voice in your head telling you that there's impending doom. Something horrible is going to happen and you're going to lose it and you're going to be embarrassed and people are going to stare at you and you're going to fail and you're going to do all this. And it's not. But that's what your brain is telling you. And that to me is unbelievable. Realizing that you have that but you have to deal with it. To some people, it's like, oh, that's just easy. That's inside your head. Just get over it and tell yourself to move on. It don't work that way. Let me tell you, the chemicals in your brain are working against you because you're in a fight or flight response when you have anxiety and depression and panic attacks. You either stay and deal with that panic internally, or you run away from it and avoid the things that you think are causing them. And neither one of those places is good without a good support network. Like you need help. Now, a lot of people feel they can handle this stuff on their own. And that's admirable that they want to, but it's also due to the embarrassment of admitting that you have a problem like this and you don't know how to deal with it. So keeping it all to yourself just manifests itself physiologically. You start getting sick. You have stomach problems. You have headaches constantly.
Headaches, yeah.
You can have neck. I mean, just check yourself during the day. If you're at the day and your shoulders are up, if you have to force your shoulders down, you're pent up. You've got some anxiety.
Okay.
You've got some stress, right?
All right. So I love your perspective because as a person who has had panic disorder and anxiety, you have a lot of insight about it. As somebody who hasn't, I often say the wrong things. Right. I'm the one that would say just like, what did I say this morning? It's a choice. I said to our kid, you know what? You're making decisions. If you don't go to school, then that's a decision you're making.
Yeah.
I don't think that was the right thing to say.
And I mean, I'll never tell somebody if it's right or wrong for what they said, because that's truly what they believed is the right thing for them to say. On the receiving end of that, no, that's not something that helps this person with a situation like that.
What helps a person? So like when this mom reached out to me, she didn't know what to do. The school, okay, in our situation with our kid, the school hasn't helped. The principal has ignored our emails. The teacher won't return our email either. The guidance counselor keeps telling him that he has to go on this certain track in order to get out of school and go to college. And all he's doing is just trying to survive or trying to,
He's trying to navigate's the only word I use, right? He's trying to navigate it. But I don't know that the school system understands his particular problems to that degree. I don't think he's had conversations with his counselors or teachers that he's, having a hard time going to class because he's feeling anxious and all that. I just think
he's a teenager. They're not going to do that.
No, they're not. They think he's just lazy and that he doesn't want to go to school, right? Yeah. And this is the problem we have inherent right now. And I don't put it on the teachers. The teachers got 30 plus kids in every class.
Yeah.
To try and deal with. And I don't put it on the teacher to go, oh, Sam's acting kind of weird today. Maybe I'll go sit with him and do that. It's just not fair for them to be able to do. They can't be a therapist for all those kids.
No, they can't. They should have therapists, though.
They should have therapists. Schools should have therapists. We'll tell that to Dougie, and we'll see if we can get that put into the education program, or Lecce, or whoever's in charge this week of education.
So basically what we've done is we've just said, do what you need to do, but just graduate. Like we don't even care what kind of grades you get. We don't care.
The funny part is about our kid knows he has a problem.
Yeah.
And he knows that what he's doing is self-defeating. But that in itself is a clue right there to the level of the anxiety and how debilitating it can be for a kid.
Yeah.
He knows he has a problem. He knows that he's at risk of failing, but it's not enough to bring him up to face the fear of going to class or dealing with this problem head on. And at the end of the day, it's all based on fear, irrational fear. Fear that you're going to embarrass yourself in class, fear that the teacher's going to single you out and embarrass you in class, fear that people are going to laugh at you or think you're crazy or stupid. That fear can grow to be a huge detriment in your head, and it will prevent you from doing everything. Our kid told us he doesn't go to class, and we asked him, well, what do you do? He says, I go and sit in my car and do my work. So he's avoiding that total scene with a teacher and other students in order that he can focus and do his work in his classroom, because he doesn't like that situation. And I mean, we knew that he was a different kid. Academia is not for him, and we know that. But he understands that he has to get a basic education in order to make way in life. He's fully prepared to do trades, work with his hands, and learn that way. He just can't sit in a classroom and learn. It's not his bag.
A lot of kids can't.
Yeah,
and don't want to.
I know, and that's the sad part. The school system. Luckily for us, last year they introduced asynchronous learning at that time because of COVID, and so he did it that way, and that worked really well for him. And we tried to impose that again this year. Hey, can Sam do that this year? Nope, we're not offering it this year. Wouldn't even have a discussion about it. So the school has to take some responsibility for that, the school board or whoever's in charge.
And by the way, asynchronous learning might not be for a kid who has such bad anxiety that they can't leave their house, because that's not a good remedy for anxiety. Letting your kid become a hermit or letting your kid avoid situations because of their anxiety, that's not a good idea either. Sam had a full-time job that he was going to because he found work was a better outlet for his stress than school was. But
he's admitted to us that it's even difficult for him to go to work some days, right?
Some days,
in that situation. But you're absolutely right. And that's where you and I balance out in our parenting, I feel. You are very much my dad taught me to swim by throwing me in the lake kind of person. I'll jump in eyes wide open, which, that has its place. If you're humming and hawing about something and somebody forces you to do something, that may work for you. It's never worked for me to do that. I am more of the soft approach. Hey, talk to me, listen to me. I want to hear what you have to say. Whereas, other people are just like, I'll just go do it. Face your fear and go do it. And sure enough, like we've had situations with our kids where they were, facing fears, and it built up anxiety in them. We had a daughter that was riding horses and was afraid to jump them. And trainers tried, and it was all, at the end of the day, it's up to her to build up the strength to go. Let me tell you, that first day that she actually did it on her own, it was like a door opened. She was so scared, and she did it. And I know she was terrified. She was crying, and she did it, and she didn't fall off, and she continued on her way afterwards. And you could see that weight of anxiety just lifted off of her, and there was no holding her back after that.
She was only like 7 years old too.
I know, she was so young. But she did it. She faced her fear, and she got over it. And essentially, that's what these kids have to do. You have to face your fear. It's not going to be pleasant. Facing a fear is never pleasant. But if you give into your fears, they will rule your life for the rest of it.
True. So as parents, I think the first mistake that we often make is we want to make everything better for our kids, because obviously because we love them so much. Yeah. So the first thing that, you want to do is you want to take away all the hurt or all the
for sure.
suffering. And so this mom was probably giving into that a bit by letting her kids stay home instead of forcing her to go to school. Would forcing,
I mean, I can't, you'd never judge somebody for that, because in their
no,
heart, that's what they feel they're doing the best for their kid. They're protecting. Number
Yeah.
one job for a parent is to protect your child, right?
we personally ignore the phone calls home from school every single day because he's been skipping.
Yeah, that's the thing. Sam, as a result of his anxiety, he skips class. And so we get called every day, we get texts every day, and we just have to ignore them. But then, I mean, at the reporting time, we get a report card with 59 absences on it. And the school system's like, well, if he's not coming to class, he's going to have a hard time. It's like, yeah, but you don't understand why he's not going to class, right?
And I'm sorry, what's wrong with our education system that my kid can miss 59 classes of English and still pass?
And still pass. I know, I get it. It's just gone to prove that, you know, asynchronous and online learning and learning at your own pace is an option that works for a lot of kids.
Yeah.
Right. Why force them all to cram into one room and force feed them the exact same recipe to everyone and expect them to all succeed with it? I mean, that's just ludicrous, if you ask me.
It is. And, you know, people have to understand too, that we have had a kid in the school system for 26 years. So this is coming all from experience. The education system in this province has deteriorated a lot since those 26 years began. And I don't blame teachers at all. I think teachers are doing an impossible job.
An impossible job with impossible rules and impossible expectations. Yes, I agree. And, you know, there are good teachers out there, don't get me wrong. But again, I mean, your child's teacher is not just dealing with your child.
Exactly.
They have classes filled with kids all day, every day, different kids, different stuff. They've got to be able to manage all of that. Teachers are got to be one of the best managers out there because they have to be. They have to manage their kids, right? And those that are compassionate do it 10 times more than the others that are just there to do a job, right? The compassionate ones, I love them. I think they're great, but I think they take on a lot of stress and stuff for the kids.
For sure.
Because they truly do care about them. There are people that care. And I mean,
so if you're a parent that's lucky enough to have a kid with anxiety and have one of these teachers that can maybe reach out to the parents and recognize there's a problem. But I mean, in this case, this kid was not going to school at all. So the parents obviously know that there's an issue.
Yeah, for sure.
And
I mean, and it could be anything, right? Your kid's not going to class. Is he being bullied in class? Is he being like you have to trust what your child says. That's hopefully you have a good relationship with your child that you can communicate.
That's
right? That's
right
key,
there.
Right there. We had that this morning.
What happened this morning?
Yeah.
Hey, buddy, we haven't really talked about much lately.
Yeah. You started it. You started it by saying, how are you doing, Sam? Not how's school, how are you doing? What's going on with you?
Yeah.
And that opened up a 20-minute conversation that ended in tears for him. And then he went to school. And then about a half hour after that, we got a nice message from him thanking us for the conversation because it meant a lot to him. And we reassured him that of course we love him no matter what, but he's not alone. And that's the other part about depression, anxiety. You feel alone because it's all in here. You feel like it's all your problem and nobody else can help. And if you're not on a good level with yourself, that's not going to be an easy fix. No, seriously.
So when you were struggling, you were a bit older and you said like your parents had no idea what to do.
No clue. My parents both had anxiety growing up. I didn't notice it until I had it. And now as I reflect and think about my childhood and all the times that I've watched my parents, especially my mom, God love her, my mom was a nervous wreck, right? And for reasons I don't understand because mom never really opened up to me. But we never talked about psychological problems growing up. We never talked about, are you okay at school? My entire school life was reflected through my report card. That was it. That's what my parents knew about my school life. What showed in my report cards? How was I doing academically? Schools today do so much more for kids than they did when I was there. And I think it's a good thing. I think teachers benefit a lot from psychology training where they can pick up on key signs that there might be a problem with a child in their class. Behavioral problems aside, you've got the kid that won't sit still and has to disrupt everybody. So there's a behavioral problem there that they have to be able to identify and recognize. Or a bully that's running around pulling kids' hair or pushing them off their chairs or something. Yeah, those are easy to spot. But the quiet kid that has his head down and is just doing work or doing nothing, they don't draw attention. They just sit there in their silence, right? And again, I'm not blaming teachers, but I mean, that's, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Okay, so back to, as parents, how, not teachers, but as parents, how can we help our kids manage their anxiety? For me personally, I believe that they use the word anxiety and nervousness interchangeably a lot of the times.
Yeah.
Like I'm feeling anxious or I feel anxiety about going into work. Well, I feel anxious about doing things sometimes too, but it's not anxiousness. I'm just nervous.
No. My insight to this is, first, the most important thing for me is do you have a good communication protocol with your kids?
Yeah.
Will they talk to you about stuff?
And if they don't, and if they won't,
then you need to get that done first.
Change
that has to,
something.
Yeah, you have to change something, because that has to be key as a start.
Yeah.
If you do have good communication and your child will listen to what you have to say, then talking to them about this and letting them know that it's okay. They're not going crazy. This can happen, right?
And letting them talk.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't talk at them and talk at them.
You might have
open-ended questions.
Yeah, that's it. Ask the right questions, such as, how are you doing at school? And then if it's not easy getting information out of them, then pry a little bit. Give them an idea. But that's a slippery slope, because some kids will tell you what you want to hear just to get out of the conversation. Yeah, and the type of kid that is, right? They don't want to be there, and then they're giving you every answer you want out of out of a textbook. Yeah, we have one of those. But the ones who are genuine they'll open up. They'll get emotional because it's a real problem for them. If you see tears start to flow when you're talking with a child, you've hit something there. They want to talk about it. This is something that wants to come out in them, but they're afraid because they don't know how.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart to see a kid suffering like that. Because I suffered from it, like you said. I've got kids that have suffered from it, and it breaks my heart knowing that this is happening for them, because it's a horrible thing to have happen to you. It really is.
So you can totally relate, and you have a lot of empathy.
Absolutely. And I don't know that I have all the answers, but from what's worked for me, like I said, is communication is key. You have to be able to talk to your kid. Some kids won't talk to their parents about anything. So maybe bring in a third party that's unbiased, right? A therapist of some sort that can, and they're trained to deal. You'll get the angry kid. We had one kid in therapy who refused to talk. He didn't want to go to therapy. We dragged him there. And guess what? The therapist can deal with somebody like that. They're like, okay, and just start a simple conversation. And before you know it, they're into some stuff that, you're giving up. You need to explain yourself. You have to let somebody in to be able to understand what's going on. And a child doesn't always know how to do that. Right. And again, the ages, like if you're dealing with a 6-year-old with depression or a 7-year-old, that's a whole different ballgame, right? You will need professional help at that point, right? Teenage anxiety is common. I mean, teenagers are making their way in the world. Parents have brought them up to a certain point. They've learned everything they can. Now they have to process all of that.
Taylor Swift started a whole career doing that.
What's that?
She just documented all her teenage angst
in music. Yeah. No, well, that could be a big part of her own therapy, personal therapy, right? And that's the other thing. We have other kids outlets. We have kids that have diaries, right? Journal every day, and that is therapy. I've always found, for me, and if I want something to stick with me, I need to write it down. If I don't write it down, I can't keep everything up here. I can't even remember to tie my fucking shoes up here.
I know.
So it's like, if I don't write it down, there's a good chance it'll get lost, But again, I'm digressing here.
No, you're not. So you're saying keep open communication.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, change something so that you can
That's the starting point. That's the starting point, to be able to talk.
Get help if you need to get help.
Yeah.
Encourage your kids to do things like journaling, or guided meditation has helped. Also, one of our kids, and positive affirmations, like just saying things to yourself.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Before you go into a situation.
Yeah. And again, it's the old rule of, positive, corrective, negative, and then positive. End on a positive, right? That works. Also, as a parent, you've got to come up with your own fears. You're going to have to prepare yourself that if your child starts to talk to you, they may say stuff you don't want to hear.
That right? Is so true.
And that is, you may be shocked at. Yeah. You may think your special little guy is this, and no way this could happen. And if you can crack open and get them to talk, there may be stuff in there that you'd be shocked to hear is going on in their world, right?
Or in their brain. Yeah.
Or in their brain, or what they're thinking of, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, don't overanalyze. I mean, we've all seen movies and stuff where, you see the kid that's got problems is drawing these dark images of things, and the parents all of a sudden look at their journals and stuff, and there's a whole messaging thing that they're going to, kill somebody or whatever. That's all drama.
Yeah.
But there is some merit to it. Your child's behavior says a lot about what they're going through. If they're quiet and they don't talk to you much, there's something going on in there that they're not sharing with you.
Yeah. And
then you've got the extrovert kids who tell you absolutely everything. They come in bursting in the door. Hey, guess what happened today? Right? Yeah. We had another one like that who just wouldn't stop talking.
Yeah. That's hard too.
Never, ever stop talking. And you'd be like, oh, stop.
So yeah, so okay, just to bring it back around, bring it back, communicate, get help your kid learn some outlets, whether it's fitness outlets, sports. That's been big for a couple of our kids as well.
That's big for everybody. When dealing with stress and anxiety, having a physical outlet and being in good shape physically, you don't have to be an athlete, but I mean, just, and again, strong. Dieting, eating. One of the biggest problems we had with our kids that all had anxiety was sugar. Sugar was a huge problem.
Oh my God, get rid of it.
We could have a whole podcast just on the bad evils of sugar and what it's done to our family anyway.
You should do that.
But again,
after we ate Timbits yesterday.
If your kid, again, communicate and everything else. But if you suspect that your child is suffering from panic, anxiety, depression, for sure, get them physically checked out. Eliminate that problem right there. Make sure their blood levels are okay and all that kind of stuff. Because quite frankly, I mean, you could be dealing with something like diabetes or hormonal imbalance or something. I had an issue with when I was back being diagnosed with depression, they used a term called chemical imbalance in my brain. That's what the scientists came up with. My brain triggers were not firing, messaging wasn't getting across. And so that made sense to me. I could picture that and say, okay.
Yeah, because it's something wrong with you.
It's something that's wrong with me, exactly. And I don't know if they just came up with that to appease people like me that needed that one. I needed something to hold on to, that tangible. Yes, there's something wrong with me. in order to be told, no, get over it. It's just in your head. And I've had people tell me that, just get over it, who didn't understand depression. Oh, when you're just sad, get over it. Take some vitamin D or go for a walk or something. And it's like, that's great. I believe me, if that would solve my problem, I'd be doing it right now, but it's not anyway.
All right. So the good news is that you have been 100% drug-free, anxiety drug-free for like
how long now?
It's got to be 18 years.
Easy. I was going to say 15, but I think you're more correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they didn't encourage it.
No, that's the other thing. When I was diagnosed with this, the meds that were just starting to come out. SSRIs, serotonin reuptake inhibitors, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, were new on the market. This was a new drug. This was Paxil. Paxil was the new drug that came out. I was on a cocktail of antidepressants, antipsychotics, and I mean, this is what their therapy was. They didn't know what worked with everybody, so you'd have to test for 6 to 8 to 12 months which cocktail would work for you to balance you out so that you could take therapy.
They don't need to do that now.
They don't need to do that anymore. Now they've got this one drug, it's a reuptake inhibitor that just flatlines you and makes you, yes, it makes you more rational. But quite frankly, for me, it took away my feeling for everything. Yes, it made me not have anxiety, but it also made me not feel love. It made me not feel excitement. It made me not feel, I was a zombie, right?
Yeah.
Not to mention the side effects, the sexual side effects, the vision side effects, everything. It was just horrible.
So the drugs can be a good fix, temporary fix, but
this is the key, and I'm going to keep you there. It's temporary. When they gave it to me, I was on it full time for how many years, Joe? I mean,
like, I don't even know. I didn't know.
12 years. I think it was like 10 to 12 years I was on these drugs, right? Because I was on them since my early 20s.
Yeah.
And the way it's supposed to work is, yes, you get these drugs, but you also have to have therapy with it to work together to build a plan to how you're going to deal with it and eventually get off the drugs. Nobody built a plan with me. I was just handed drugs every month. I saw my psychiatrist once a year, if that, and that's just not right. That's not how they do it now, because those drugs are not good. Those drugs, that Paxil drug is what do they call it? Prozac and Paxil. Those two drugs were the Columbine high school shooting drugs. Those kids that went there did that. I mean, those drugs were not good, right?
No.
Anyway, yeah.
But anyhow, so we're gonna wrap this up because
I know I could just keep blabbing forever.
Okay.
Again, communicate, get a communication line that works for you and your child.
Yeah.
And that's the first key. Then keep the communications open and learn to understand the signs in your child that something's going on, right?
Yeah.
And talk to them. Be able to talk to them freely, and don't judge them and don't berate them because they have a problem. It's not a sign of weakness on you that your child has anxiety. It's not.
And please also talk to other parents. And even if you that's why
I'm here. Talk to me.
We're on the app. We're on the app. So
yeah.
Well, I am, but
more than happy to talk. Yeah.
Yeah, like if you're embarrassed about it, or if you don't, because I guess there is a stigma still. We're trying to get rid of it, but if you feel like you just don't want the whole world to know, like obviously we don't care. But if you don't want everyone to know what you're going through, but you want to talk about it, that's exactly what the MamaSoup community is for.
That's exactly right. You're absolutely right. But also at the same time, get over yourself. It's not an embarrassment, it's slight of you. Put on your big parent pants and deal with that, right? You've got a bigger problem to deal with, which is your child, right? Your own personal inadequacies, yeah, exactly. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be judgmental and stuff, but that's how I would approach it anyway. But yeah, come to MamaSoup. We got answers. We got help. We got answers.
Oh, this has been enlightening.
Yep.
I hope we can help parents with this little conversation.
I hope so too. And
even if they just understand that they're not alone.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So if you like what you see, come to mamasoup.ca and start a conversation.
There's one going there already. I think it's called, the tag is anxiety in teenagers, or something like that. Just look it up.
There you go.
In the search bar, because there's people talking about it.
For sure.
It's a thing.
All right.
Okay, well, thanks for chatting.
Oh, I'm always up for chats. You know that. Thanks for having me. Bye.
Bye.